In this video, we're going to learn the most efficient way to make a YouTube video in DaVinci Resolve. If you're looking for a to-do list on how to just create YouTube videos, this video is going to be perfect for you, and we're going to have a lot of fun along the way. Let's jump in. Getting started can be one of the hardest parts of any new project. And just like our zombie scenario here, it can be really hard to figure out what to do first. Don't worry though, we're with you every step of the way. First thing we gotta do is get organized. And the best way to get organized is to gather our tools. Now, back in DaVinci Resolve, we're facing this intimidating kind of blank page, right? And so let's start off by just getting everything together, kind of gathering our tools and our assets and everything that we need to make our video. Chances are, if you're at this point, you probably have some media. And so here on the edit page, I can just go over to the media pool, right click and say import media. Then you're gonna go on your hard drive, wherever your media is, select it and hit open. This thing will pop up and it might ask if you want to change your frame rate. When you import your footage and your frame rate is different than the frame rate in the project settings, it's going to pop up with this box and ask if you want to change it. If you shot in the frame rate that you want to use for your video, you can hit change. If you want to change it to a different frame rate or, throw away frames or something like that, you can say don't change. But I'm just going to say change. And now we have our footage and it plays back beautifully. Oh, so good. One thing to notice is that here we have these pink icons that say PXY. And that's because we've made proxies of this footage. A proxy is like a low resolution version of your video that's easier for Resolve to play back. It's not a 4K crazy raw or something like that. It's a little tiny video with the same timing that you can edit together and then switch out with the big video later so that it's just less work for Resolve to think about while you're editing and you don't have to wait for things to render and all that stuff. I do have a video about proxies. I'll put a card up there and you can check that out. So you want to import all of your footage, and I would recommend making proxies. If you haven't, that's kind of the first step. Then we want to gather everything and get it really organized so that we can think. I'm just going to switch back to my other project here as I already have it open. And a good place to do this is actually in the media page. So this far left page, if you click on that, that'll switch out the interface and it kind of optimizes it for just opening media and organizing it and that kind of thing without worrying about your edit right now. So I'll just double click on my media folder. I already sort of have these in bins. I'll just take this part and bring it up. And so here I have all of my footage here, but it's not really organized at all. And if you have a lot of footage, it's a great idea to just take, 10 minutes and at minimum, scrub through your footage and see what you got. But what I would recommend is putting them into bins, little categories. And so for instance, we have some drone shots here. I can take all of these, shift select them like this, and then I can right click and say, create bin with selected clips. And then I can go over here to where it says bin 5, click on this and we'll call this drone. Like that, go back to my media, and I can kind of scrub through these and see what we have. So we have some snorkeling shots, boogie boarding. This is kind of ocean stuff. So I can right click, again, create bin with selected clips. We'll call this underwater. This is also a great time if you have footage that's vertical or is the wrong size or is too loud or too quiet or something like that. You can kind of adjust this beforehand. So I can right click on this, go to clip attributes. And here where it says image orientation 90% right, let's just switch that to 0 and hit OK. And now that's going to make sure that clip isn't turned sideways. And so I'm just going to go through and organize all of these clips so that I'm not looking through 100 clips every time I look for something. I can kind of look within each category. You can also do a similar thing by kind of tagging the metadata. It might be overkill depending on your project. If it's a great big project with lots and lots of media, it might be worth putting in some metadata. If you only have a few clips, probably don't worry about it. But for instance, I could select all of these clips of my kids playing in the pool. And here under the metadata panel, I can grab this little menu and switch to shot and scene. And I could enter keywords like pool, kids, sunny, right? And hit save. And that's going to apply those keywords to each of these clips. Then here in our smart bins, I'll move this so you can see it over my camera. I can click on keywords and that adds these little keywords here. And these are little bins that will let me sort out my footage. And so I can kind of just go through and tag my media with different keywords. These are all at the ocean, and that'll put these in that smart bin. Such a great tool, especially if you have a lot of media. But yeah, first step, go through, get stuff organized, organized, make things easier on yourself later. If you have a lot of footage, take the 10 or 15 minutes and just make everything nice and neat. And at this point, I would go through and I would probably watch the footage if you're not really familiar with it, at least kind of scrub through it and figure out where there are people talking, where there's audio that you want to use for the actual, dialogue in the video, and what shots are just going to be B-roll. If you have sound effects or music, line that out, get organized, and kind of just make sure your project is ready. Now that we have everything we need, our footage, our B-roll, and our VO, we can really start creating. Let's go. All right, we're back in the edit page here in DaVinci Resolve, and I have quite a few timelines made just so I can show you these steps without taking forever. So for a lot of videos, especially if they're kind of story driven or if they're a how-to video or something like that, you can really build the video around a voiceover or around an interview, somebody kind of telling the story. And so what I like to do is just start with the VO. So if I have something like that, I like to just start by taking the VO and just dragging it into a new timeline. Then what I'll usually do is make this really big so that I can see where there is empty spaces here. And I'll go through and trim this VO. So I'm cutting out all of the ums and the ahs and the repeats and the silent parts. And we're just making a radio edit. So that's just like, when you hear on the radio, there's no silence in between the words. It's just bam, 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 bam. That's pretty much what we're trying to do with the VO here. And you can always go in and add space later, but I like to figure out how concise can we make this video, because shorter is usually better when it comes to YouTube videos. Hello, friendships. I've had an awesome couple months. So one thing is that the VO is in just the left ear. And so I can fix that by going here to our track header, right clicking and saying change track type to mono. And now it'll come out of both ears. Hello, friendships. I've had an awesome couple months and I wanted to share some highlights with you all. Perfect. So what we're going to do is just trim this to cut out any of that unneeded stuff. Hello, friendships. I've had an awesome couple months and I wanted to share some highlights with you all. And then after I'm done with that last word of that sentence, I'll split this by hitting Control \, and then you can either roll this way up into our next word, select this and delete it, or you can take your playhead and move it almost to the word and hit Control-Shift-Left bracket, and that's going to do the same thing. It's just going to chop off the beginning of that all the way up to the next edit point. What I've done is remapped Control-Shift-Left bracket and right bracket to Q and W on the keyboard, and Control \/ to S on the keyboard, so that I can quickly split it here, move over, and then hit Q to chop the beginning of that off. And so I can go through here. I don't even need to listen to it. I can just see where it's empty and just kind of cut out this empty space. And so I'll usually go through the entire VO like that. It only takes a couple minutes, even with kind of a longer track, and I'll just get rid of all of the empty space. Now, there are tools that can do this, and some of them work well. There's also one built in Resolve, which I have mixed results with, but you can also kind of play things back at this point and really see what's in your VO, and you can kind of edit it as you go. Depends on what you want. It's totally okay to just cut out all this stuff and then play it later. You might be doing a little bit of extra work because you're not cutting out the extra parts, but look at that, I'm already done. So now we have the radio edit, and I can play this back and I don't have to listen to all the empty space in between, and I can just hear the story. Hello, friendships. I've had an awesome couple months and I wanted to share some highlights with you all. First, we went on a, so this is a repeat. So I'm going to cut that. Awesome couple months and I wanted to share some okay, that works. And I just go through that whole thing and make sure that radio edit sounds good. It says everything that we need to say. The timing might not be totally right, but all the content is there. And after the main kind of backbone of the content is there, then you can kind of branch out to crafting a feeling. To set the right tone for the video, make sure you pick out some solid music. You're going to want some music that has the same feeling that you want your audience to feel when they watch your video. The right music can make a huge difference. So after we have our VO put in and roughly kind of laid out, and we have all of the pieces that we want together, then we can start putting in some music. The big thing here is you don't want the music to be distracting. You want it to make people feel the way that you want them to feel when they watch your video, right? So I laid in some music here. So it's fun, it's playful, it's not too serious, there isn't anything that's super distracting, there isn't some weird synth that's just like murdering your ears. And now it's time to just see what this sounds like with the music and the VO together. I have the music soloed right now, but I'm gonna unsolo that. Hello, friendships. I've had an awesome couple months and I wanted to share some highlights with you. Okay, first thing is we gotta dip this music under. And the easiest way to do this is just to split the clip. You can hit Control / to split the clip right at the playhead. And then we can take this little line here and just drag the line down to turn the volume down on the part of the clip that's under my talking. And then we can right click on this transition when we have the two little brackets. Right click here and just say like 24 frame crossfade like that. And that will fade in between the louder and the quieter music, which will give you like a fade down, right? Hello, friendships. I've had an awesome couple months and I want... So for now, that's roughly fine. And at this point, I'd also roughly kind of time out where you want the VO to be, how long you want this video to be, and how it's supposed to feel sort of at the end. And so you can edit your music to be a little bit shorter. Crazy hot, so we busted out our new pool and the kids had an awesome time. Also, there are a lot of ways to shorten your music. There isn't a automatic like music shortening thing in Resolve right now, but I'll show you the easiest way to do it is you listen to it and you count the measures. So this helps if you're familiar with counting with music and stuff, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And each 4 is a measure. And you generally want to make an edit on the first beat, okay? So 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now, I stopped this right here and we can see there's a little spike right here. So this is going to be a great place to edit our music. So I can just split that right there. And we should, if we just come right into this, this should still sound pretty good. Yeah, it sounds like it starts on purpose right there. So then anytime that we want to shorten this, like let's say I want to shorten this to right here, we just have to stop that on the first beat. So so that 1 is right here on this spike. So again, I'll just split that and I can delete this part, move this down, and this should be a pretty good edit or be very close. Yeah, totally works. And to make this a little bit nicer, sometimes you can add just a small crossfade. Yeah, works great. So if you do need to shorten your music, make sure you do it on the beat. It's not super hard to do that, but a little bit of musical experience is really helpful here. And so I'm just gonna go through and kind of play this through and make sure that I like the feeling of it and that it feels like a good length. I think that's their favorite part of the day. That feels like a good length, feels like a good ending. So now that we have the structure of our video kind of laid out, we're gonna start adding some B-roll. The idea of B-roll is that it's a visual representation of what the VO is talking about. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly what the VO is talking about, but it does sort of have to match the feeling, right? So if I say, we had a great time, it might be people smiling, people having fun. It doesn't have to be somebody giving a thumbs up to the camera saying, I've had a great time. That's too on the nose, right? So I'm gonna skip ahead here, and all I've done is just, I've went through some of our clips, and I've went through and found clips that I think represent what I'm talking about here. So let's take a look at this point. Chips, I've had an awesome couple months, and I'm just gonna turn this music down so we can hear it. I wanted to share some highlights with you. First, we went on an amazing trip to Maui with some wonderful friends of ours. And so we have some drone footage of Maui. We did all kinds of fun stuff. We played on the beach. Fun stuff.
So this is a pretty legit Hawaii beach. I mean, man.
So we have a couple of options here. When I say we played on the beach, we can either cut to like a clip where somebody's talking and they're on the beach, or we could just cut to a visual of the beach and have that happen at the same time as when I say on the beach, right? But either way, for a documentary kind of thing like this, I like to mix in just B-roll of what's being talked about in the VO and then cut to things that have like on-camera sound, people talking, you know, that kind of thing. Like you're in the moment and then we kind of skip and show a few moments and then you're in the moment again and we kind of go in and out like that.
Legit Hawaii beach.
Snorkeling for the first time. And if there's a place where you'd like to show a lot of video, but you don't have a lot of talking or on-camera video, or you don't have the VO, you can just take the music and kind of punch that up for that little part. And so I like to just cut the music around here like this and take this little part up and again, just crossfade these, right? I'm gonna crossfade them like 24 frames. You can always grab the edges and make it a bigger fade, because then it doesn't feel awkward that the music is quiet. Went snorkeling for the first time. Comes back in. Went boogie boarding. Dips down, right? And I'm just starting to lay in one by one the pieces that I feel like make sense, the shots that I really like using, the ones I'm excited about. We also visited the Maui Ocean Center. And we saw sea turtles, all kinds of fish, awesome sharks. So naturally, after telling my kids about how awesome the sharks were, they wanted to see some.
Today we're at the aquarium, aren't we?
So we're just laying in the pieces as we find them, and we don't have to get it all perfect all at once. It's just throwing in kind of the easy stuff. So here we are, jumping ahead in time a little bit. We have more of a completed timeline here, and we really just keep adding footage and moving things around, changing things around until it starts to look more like a finished video. And once the story is there, and once the shots that we want to be in there are there, and once we're hearing things roughly how we want, and the timing is relatively decent, that's what we would call a fine cut, right? So this looks like a video. We haven't done any color or mixing. We haven't added anything fancy. We haven't added any titles. It's just put together as a story. And if you rendered it now, maybe it wouldn't look or sound the best, but the story is there and it's tight and it's clean. Hello, friendships. I've had an awesome couple months and I wanted to share some highlights with you. First, we went on an amazing trip to Maui with some wonderful friends of ours, and we did all kinds of fun stuff. Take this audio down just so we can hear it a little better. We did all kinds of fun stuff. We played on the beach.
So this is a pretty legit Hawaii beach. I mean, man, this is crazy.
Went snorkeling for the first time. Go, nice snorkeling shots. Look at that. Boogie boarding. Yeah, boogie boarding shots. We also visited the Maui Ocean Center. Pretty cool. And we saw sea turtles, all kinds of fish, awesome sharks. So naturally, after telling my kids about how awesome the sharks were, they wanted to see some.
Today we're at the aquarium, aren't we?
So we ended up taking a trip to the aquarium here in Oregon and spending an awesome day checking out all the cool stuff. We played on the beach. When we got back home, it was crazy hot, so we busted out our new pool and the kids had an awesome time. Also, the kids love the tire swing. I think that's their favorite part of the day. Yeah. So again, I mean, this is just a little sample video. You'd probably have a little bit more of, you know, a point or whatever in this video, but let's just say that everything that we want in our video is there. All the content is good. Now we can get into some polish.
VFX and motion graphics can really spice up your video and make it more memorable. Done right, these babies can really make your video pop.
So here we have our edit, done just a little bit more work on it, but we have a problem. I wanted to share some highlights with you. First, we went on an amazing trip to Maui with some wonderful friends of ours. So we went to Maui, and at this point, I'm really thinking like, okay, what easy things can I do to spice up this video and add a little bit of interest with either graphics or visual effects or something like that. And I came up with an idea of like a travel map, right? Where the plane goes across the map and you can, you know, see where you're coming from and where you're going. So I made this little animation in Fusion of this plane flying over to Maui and landing. And I think that's just a really neat way to show that, hey, we flew to Maui. And if this is the kind of thing that's exciting for you, I love talking about Fusion. That's like the main thing that I do. I have a lot of videos on editing and workflow and stuff, but Fusion is my jam. And you can make stuff like this and so much more in Fusion. And if you want to make cool stuff like this, well, Fusion is the best place to do it. And if you're new to nodes and, you know, this kind of interface, this can be pretty intimidating. But there's really only like 9 9 nodes that you need to know to make so much stuff in Fusion. And I actually have a free workshop on this. I love teaching Fusion. I have a ton of stuff about Fusion. And so we'll add a card right here. And also there's a link in the description below. You can get that free workshop and kind of get kickstarted on your Fusion journey. Because if you want to make graphics and animations and movie magic, visual effects, all that stuff, Fusion is the place to be. And it's a free tool. It's kind of like After Effects and it's packed into Resolve. It's so much fun. If you guys want a specific video on how to make this map animation, let me know in the comments and I'll see what I can do. But essentially I got a picture from Google Maps of Maui and kind of filled in the rest of the ocean and got a plane image and animated the plane image going this way. And then I made a dotted line and then masked the dotted line behind the plane so that it reveals as the plane flies in. Pretty neat stuff. So this is all built into a Fusion composition, which just lives here in my media pool. And I can take this animation and just drag this in like a clip and throw that in here in my edit. I wanted to share some highlights with you. First, we went on an amazing trip to Maui. By the way, if Fusion doesn't play back really well, you can go up to playback and make sure that you have render cache set to user, and that will automatically start caching this map animation so it can play back. One thing I like to do is take a look in my project settings at the master settings and scroll down here to optimize media and render cache. And this render cache format, I don't know why, but they have it as uncompressed 10-bit. I'd probably do something like DNxHR-HQ, something like that. Switch that real quick. And then just leave your timeline alone for just a minute and that little blue bar will fill up. And once it's all filled up, you should be able to play this back nicely. First, we went on an amazing trip to Maui. Beautiful. Wonderful. And so we've added some fanciness. Oh, so exciting. If you want to add some visual effects, you can just park your playhead over the shot that you want to edit in Fusion and then just switch over to the Fusion page just by clicking Fusion. And that brings that up in Fusion and you have all of your Fusion tools and everything available. So I could do something like maybe add some distortion here. Just add a displace. We'll just change some stuff around here and make this a little bit more ripply as far as the water goes. Stuff. We add a little bit more ripples there if we want to. Just mess with this a little bit. Now it looks like we're a little more ripply under the water. Love that. Could even do something like add some text here. I don't know what kind of fish this is, but fish. Put that right here and that'll ripple along with the fish. That's kind of fun, right? And then if we like that shot, all we have to do is switch back to the edit page and there it is, already in our edit. All the cool stuff. We played on the beat, pretty cool. After we've added a bunch of our Fusion stuff, whether it's titles or visual effects or whatever, it's a good time to think about some color grading. So to put your entire project into color mode, all you have to do is just be looking at your timeline and then down here, hit the color button. That'll bring this into color. And now we can see all of our shots all lined out one after another, and we can go through and do our color grading. I have quite a few videos on color workflow and how that all works. There's also a lot of wisdom about this on YouTube. So if you want to dive into that, make sure to check out some of my other videos. But generally what you would do is you would run all of your shots through some kind of color management or LUT that's going to convert it from log, if you're shooting log, into an image that looks good on your monitor. So this is GoPro footage. I'm going to use a special GoPro LUT. This was actually developed by our buddy Cullen Kelly, and it makes everything just look instantly awesome. We got a great color grade on it, and it's a great starting point depending on how well you shot it, how your white balance and exposure and stuff is. But you can, before this LUT, kind of change things around and get a pretty good result without a whole lot of work. And you can do that for all of your shots. I'm just gonna middle button mouse click here and replace existing grades. And that's going to do a pretty good job on some of these shots. Some of them are gonna be a little bit crazy just because of the exposure and stuff. But we have a pretty good starting point on some of these shots, you know, and you can kind of adjust them under the LUT to look a little better. Again, color is its own huge thing. I actually have a video on color workflow right up there if you wanna check that out. But color is next. Go through and make sure that all of your shots look nice and that they work together, they match. And so here's a sequence I've spent some time on where the colors look nice. Of course, with GoPro, you always kind of take what you can get. But once we have this looking the way that we want, we can take everything into Fairlight for audio. From any of the pages, if I just have my timeline up, I can switch over to Fairlight like this. And in Fairlight, this is where you can go crazy with your audio stuff. And really what we're trying to do here is we want to make sure that the music is a good level, that it's not too loud, not too quiet. You can hear the talking over the music. We can also add some filters to our dialogue to make it kind of stand out a little better. So one thing I'll definitely do is make sure we dip our music like this. Again, just cutting it here and then crossfading it. And let's just take this down a little bit. Hello, friendships. I've had an awesome couple months and I wanted to share some highlights. And anytime where I'm not talking, we're just gonna split this like this. There we go. Open up the inspector and set the volume for something. So let's do like -18 if it's under my talking. And if it's just by itself, let's do like -8 or something. Let's just see how that sounds. Time. It's probably good. Again, I'll go through and just add maybe 24 frame crossfades in between these, just to make sure that the music is low when I'm talking and high if there's nothing else being heard. Hello, friendships. I've had an awesome couple months and I wanted to share some highlights with you. Went snorkeling for the first time. Great. I also want to make sure that my dialogue is loud enough. This is a really big deal. And there are a lot of ways to do this. Probably the easiest thing to do would just be to select track 2 or wherever your audio is and just click on dialogue leveler. Just like that. First, we went on an amazing trip to Maui with some wonderful friends of ours and we did all kinds of fun stuff. We played on the beach.
So this is a pretty legit.
And that'll kind of level things out a little bit. And then there's some options here. I sometimes like to go to more lift for low levels like this, so we can hear. First, we went on an amazing trip to Maui with some wonderful friends of ours and we did all kinds of fun stuff. And so that's great if you have just one track. You can also kind of group tracks together and kind of put filters on those tracks together, which is called a bus. If you want to add a bus, you can go up to Fairlight menu and go to bus format. And by default, there's just one bus. A bus is just like a mix, right? So by default, there's bus 1 and that's just like your stereo mix. I can go here to add bus. We'll say bus 2 and we can rename this and we'll call this DIA for dialogue. And let's just make this a stereo bus. Sounds good. And I'll hit OK. Now what we can do is open up the mixer. And if we scroll down here, we have these bus outputs. By default, all the tracks go to bus 1, which means that they're just going to the stereo mix. But we can switch this to dialogue on these first 2 tracks because these both have dialogue on them. And now everything's going to go through my dialogue track. Now we won't hear it unless I add a bus to this dialogue track too and route it back to bus 1. And so we can add things to bus 1. For instance, I could take off this dialogue leveler and do something like add some dynamics. You can double click on dynamics. And one thing to do if you don't really know what you're doing with dynamics is just go up to the upper left and here where it says default, just go down to dialogue compression like this. And that's going to boost the quiet parts and push down the louder parts so it kind of evens all of the dialogue out. And so now we can kind of play
First,
this back.
we went on an amazing trip to Maui with some wonderful friends of ours and we did all kinds of fun stuff. We played on the beach.
So this is a pretty legit Hawaii beach. I mean, man.
And that's going to make it easier to hear over the music, right? Because it's kind of pushing everything up a little bit. The other thing I do is for our music track, this audio 3, this music, you can take this EQ and double click on it right here. And we can do what we call a scoop. We can take this number 4 and just bring this down between 1 and 2K, just bring it down a little bit. And then I'm going to roll with my scroll wheel to make this just kind of a smaller spike. What this is doing is turning down the frequencies that are about the same frequencies as most human voices, right? So it's just kind of taking out all of the extra noise that would be competing with somebody's voice. And you'd be amazed at the clarity that this brings when you have music under your audio and you don't really notice it most of the time. It just helps things kind of sit together a little easier.
First, we went on an amazing trip to Maui with some wonderful friends of ours and we did all kinds of fun stuff. We played on the beach.
So this is a pretty legit Hawaii beach. I mean, man, this is crazy.
Went snorkeling for the first time. And then from there, it's just adjusting things to make sure that it's loud enough and that you can hear everything. And you just kind of go through and get really detailed with your audio when it comes to the Fairlight page.
Make sure you watch your project one more time before you render. If you don't, you might miss a spelling error only to get roasted in the comments. Believe me, it's happened to me. Take the time and do the annoying things, deal with what you need to do, and man, your life will be so much easier. Just a second, I gotta take care of this. Take the time, take care of what you need to take care of, and your project will be a lot better.
So now that we think everything sounds good, feels good, looks good. We're gonna watch it through one more time and make sure that everything's the way that we like it. Well, this part's not great. This is sideways. So let's grab this, go to the inspector and not rotate this 90. There we go. It's probably zoomed in too much too. There we go. Hello, friendships. I've had an awesome couple months and I wanted to share some highlights with you. First, we went on an amazing trip to Maui with some wonderful friends of ours and we did all kinds of fun stuff. We played on the beach.
So this is a pretty legit Hawaii beach. I mean, man, this is crazy.
Went snorkeling for the first time. So it's really just going through and finding things that you don't like. So for instance, I feel like this color is a little dark, so I can switch over to color. Maybe I'll grab this exposure and kind of boost this up a little bit, maybe boost up the gamma just to give a little bit more in the shadows there. Of course, we're right by the ocean, so this is really noisy. So we might be able to do something like use our voice isolation, which is just a studio feature, which is nuts. So check this out. Just gonna solo this.
Hawaii beach? I mean, man, this is crazy.
All of that noise, but check this out. Voice isolation, turn that on.
Hawaii beach? I mean, man, this is crazy. This is crazy. Hawaii beach? I mean, man.
So it's not perfect, but it might help you in a pinch. If you have a lot of background noise, you can also just take this amount down. So let's take that down to like 80.
Hawaii beach? I mean, man.
So go through and watch it through and fix all the little things. Anything that you feel like is just not great or doesn't come across or you can't hear it or you can't see it. Sometimes there's a little tiny gap of like one frame like this. That's called a flash frame. Make sure to go in and fix those and make sure you love it and you're sure about it before you render it. And then once your video is looking great, sounding great, you love it, you're sure about it, then we can switch over to the deliver page like this. And from there, you can set your render settings and render it out. I do have some videos on the best render settings, but if you want an updated video on that, let me know and we can do another one of those. If you don't want to get too crazy into it and you just want to render something out, what I would do is start with the YouTube preset like this, and then switch back over to custom export so you can play with stuff a little bit. And I would switch this codec to H.265 if you have the studio version. If not, keep it on H.264. Encoder, if you have an NVIDIA card, I do NVIDIA. Resolution, I would actually up-res to something like Ultra HD. This isn't going to make your video look better, but it is going to kind of trick YouTube into thinking that it looks better, and YouTube is going to be nicer with the compression. And so it's going to end up looking better on YouTube after it gets converted again. Keep the frame rate the same. This quality, so what I like to do is 2000 times the frame rate. So if it's 24, that would be 48,000. I found after testing this that that's about the right cheapness to goodness ratio as far as space versus quality when you're rendering something like H.265. Everything else you can probably leave as is. Make sure you have single clip selected here and pick a great place to put this. Obviously desktop is top notch. Make sure to call it untitled.mp4. Just kidding, don't do that. Put it in a place that's responsible, call it something responsible, and then just go ahead and click add to render queue. And if you're up-resing it, it'll say, do you really want to up-res it? You just say yes. And then you hit render all and it's going to render out and it'll be ready to put up on YouTube. So there's a workflow for YouTube for 2024. I hope this was really helpful for you. If you don't know me, my name's Casey and I teach DaVinci Resolve, but especially Fusion. So if you really want to get into Fusion, I just really hope that you come and hang out and we can work on Fusion stuff together. If not, well, I hope this has been helpful for you. And there's all kinds of other beautiful things about DaVinci Resolve that you can dive into. One of the most powerful programs available today, especially for video editing and content creation. And what are you working on? What are you going to use this video to actually create? What kind of channel do you have? What kind of videos are you making? Let me know. I want to hear all about it. And of course, don't forget that Fusion workshop, 9 nodes to make almost anything in Fusion. Check out this video here. Look at that. So many things to do. This is great. We got a workflow. I don't know what this is. I think that I'm making bread. We can make bread now.